Alright, so I already dropped my trailer reaction and just surface thoughts based on the preview we saw from Fontaine, but let's get down to business. Welcome to the Livestream lore, a breakdown and summary of all the lore of Fontaine that was dropped during the livestream proper itself outside of the trailer. This is just a compilation of all the smaller details that the developers mentioned along the way packed into one neat video. Disclaimer, I won't fully be going into the trailer itself in this video because I do want to collect my thoughts on the potential thematic speculations in future videos instead of this one. For today, we're just focusing on what's on the live stream and putting them into one neat list. I also do want to focus more on the newer information we have instead of repeating the old ones from years ago, so let's just see how this all plays out. So let's begin with the different visions. There's an in-lore reason for why Fontaine characters have different frames even with each other. And besides being a stylistic choice, this is to indicate their proficiency in an attribute known as arc. The frame of their vision indicates whether they are able to control Ousia or Pneuma. In philosophy, these are terms that refer to different ideologies regarding the self and existence. Ousia refers to essence or substance, and it is all that subsists by itself and have no need for anything else for consistency. Pneuma, on the other hand, refers to the soul, breath, or the spirit. Arc could even be a reference to the concept of arche or arche, which according to Google, arche or arche or principle is an ancient Greek philosophical term. Building on earlier uses, Aristotle established it as a technical term with a number of related meanings, including originating source, cause, principle of knowledge, and basic entity. I find it cool that this would imply that Fontainian philosophy views the self and the soul as the basic origin of everything, something that would parallel nicely with the idea from Inazuma that the visions come from the person itself and their ambitions. It gives this air of individualism amongst the Allergenes, you know? Nevertheless, mechanically, Pneumoesia energy when reacted together creates a reaction known as annihilation. These energies power most, if not all, technology in Fontaine, and it's an everyday resource that is utilized for most gizmos and tech that run society. So, you know it's going to be absolutely a target for some nefarious deeds. Continuing with this, we have a breakdown of the automatons of Fontaine. These are known as the Clockwork Mecha and have different purposes depending on the model. 400 years ago, the creator of the Fontaine Research Institute, Alain Guillotine, created energy blocks providing power via the Pneumoesia annihilation reactions, and that's one of the sources of energy for Fontaine. The Assault Specialist Mecha, for example, are meant to be the protectors of the city, and we see in the trailer that they have different forms and weapons. Clockwork Mecha are also used to patrol the streets of Fontaine, perform underwater reconnaissance, and general environment surveillance. We do see in the live streams that they're enemy creatures, and there's even a shot of them with a Fatui Geomancer. So just how safe really are the Clockwork Mecha anyway? The next piece of lore is the fantastic innovation of steampunk transportation. Fontaine has an aquarail system, energy-powered boats, and even airships. Definitely a step above the other nations. The aquarail system has 3 aquabus lines. Clementine Line connects Rome Maritime Harbor with the main station in the Court of Fontaine. The Navia Line leads to Erinyes, and the Calais Line used to directly arrive at the Fontaine Research Institute. Well, used to. I don't know if it's intentional or this is a mistranslation, but if it is intentional, the probable reason why this is used to direct to the Fontaine Research Institute was because there was once an explosion in there, and I wouldn't know. Erinyes was one of the places that was mentioned as a destination for the aquabuses, and I absolutely love the myth behind this name. This passage that I'm about to read is taken from GreekMythology.com, and I absolutely love their origin. One of the best literary examples in which the Erinyes had a major role is in the trilogy Oresteia, in which Orestes, the son of Agamemnon and Clytemnestra, slays his mother who had killed her husband for sacrificing their daughter. Committing such a grave crime of matricide, Orestes is tormented by the Erinyes and seeks help from the Oracle of Delphi. There, he is told to go to Athens and ask goddess Athena for a trial. In the trial, the Erinyes appear as accusers of Orestes. The jury votes are evenly split and Athena is the tiebreaker, and Athena decides to side with Orestes. The Erinyes threaten to torment all of Athenians from now on, but Athena uses a mixture of bribery and threats to change their minds. Instead, the Erinyes become the Semnai, or the Venerable Ones, and instead of vengeance, they become the protectors of justice. Neat story, isn't it? A trial for a trial. The Melusines are tiny creatures that we saw patrolling the court of Fontaine in the live stream and the first ever preview of Fontaine. Melusines are born with a powerful sight and are able to perceive things better than most humans can. According to Wikipedia, Melusine or Melusina is a figure of European folklore, a female spirit of fresh water in a holy well or river. She is usually depicted as a woman who is a serpent or fish from the waist down. She is also sometimes illustrated with wings, two tails, or both. They're also law enforcers and members of the Maillardet Phantom. The Maillardet Phantom is a special detective force that reports directly to the Ludex, also known as the Chief Justice. According to Wikipedia, the Maillardet were a corps of soldiers in the armies of France initially put in charge of military policing and justice in the Middle Ages, and later extended to civilian responsibilities. They gradually coalesced into a police force with jurisdiction over the entire population on almost the entire territory of France. They retained powers of extraordinary justice until the French Revolution. So in the context of Fontaine, these little buggers are effectively the secret investigators and police forces. They live in a remote village away from Fontainian civilization, but they do occasionally patrol underground locations like Flosande. I am so sorry if I butchered any of that pronunciation. I have no idea how to speak French. The Court of Fontaine is the main city, and I'm happy that they actually expanded on this, considering that prior to the reveal of 4.0, the court was assumed to be the main building where trials are held. This does bring into light the previous lore bits we know about Fontaine, such as the Steambird being allegedly under the jurisdiction of the Court of Fontaine. What I want to know is, what does that mean now that the court is less of an organization and more so a vast location? Is it now just a general claim that the publishers reside in the court, like how you say Sumer Academia as both a location and an organization? The Court of Fontaine was also known for its beautiful maidens. The harpist known as a sojourner was loved by the women of the court, before the maidens, as ethereal as the clouds themselves, wept at his departure. Nevertheless, I'm excited to see what the court has in store for us. And speaking of the court, we now have another energy system which is used for everyday consumption. The main energy source for the usual necessities of life is known as indemnitium. The word indemnity means security or protection from financial burden or legal liability, which is a fascinating choice of name for an energy of a luxurious city that hosts theater and legal trials in the same regard. This is the energy that is ascribed to also power a majority of Fontainian technology and works in tangent with Archaeum to fuel society. Unlike Pneumoisia energy that seems to be actual tangible forces in nature, indemnitium seems to be more vague. They describe it as being harvested during judgment. The oratrice harvests people's belief in justice and converts it into this energy. What in the world that means is unknown, but I assume that it's the same way that knowledge is absorbed or compiled by the Akasha terminals. Though this is a more abstract process because it takes something as obscure as belief. It also doesn't help that Lyonnais insinuates that the oratrice is something with an active consciousness rather than a general machine. So this is definitely not going to backfire and plunge the entirety of Fontaine into the water. Well, whatever it is, it's the main reason that people of Fontaine are excited for Judgment. Hotel de Bord is a location where most artists and performers are invited to hold their shows in, and Lenny and Lynette are the star attractions. The name de Bord may be a reference to Guy Ernest Debord, who is a French Marxist theorist, philosopher, filmmaker, critique of work, member of the Letterist International, and the author of the Society of the Spectacle. While I know that this isn't completely relevant to a random hotel in Fontaine, I did want to talk about Wikipedia's summary of the book and its main thesis arguments. Just because I find it cool to relate with how Fontaine portrays the spectacular and the magnificent, Wikipedia delineates the different chapters into the following core arguments. The spectacle is the inverted image of society in which relations between commodities have supplanted relations between people. There exists a degradation of human life, where people's essence of self turned into what they had and what they appeared to be. There was also a massive dialogue over commodification, authenticity, plagiarism, profit, appearance, and critique over sociology. While I haven't read the piece itself, and considering that it has really strong sociological critiques that I'm unfamiliar with, I'll put a pin on this explanation for future use instead. We also have a bunch of bazaars around the Clockwork of Fontaine. It sells all sorts of toy birds and clockwork gizmos. The owner believes that clockwork is an integral part of Fontainian culture, and thus he wants a clockwork to reflect that. And speaking of clockworks, the Icewind Suite was a gift from the Fontaine Research Institute, which comprises two pieces, the Dirge of Coppelia and Nemesis of Coppelius. According to Wikipedia, Coppelia is a comic ballet which depicts a doctor named Dr. Coppelius who made a life-size dancing doll. Because of its beautiful and lifelike nature, a village boy named Franz became infatuated with it. The story has a lot of twists and turns, but I'm certain that the attack patterns for this mob will have names that reference that ballet. The Icewind Suite weren't originally made to be combat mecha, but rather a mixture of the fine arts and technologies. However, when the mechanic modified them into combat mecha, they both retained their dance-like attack patterns. And these two mobs have a better love life than 90% of the people watching this video. Now we move on to the Phantasm Abberants. The waterfall around Fontaine extends to around 300 feet, and it's home to some beautiful, beautiful creatures. The Phantasm Abberants are the new form of enemies that exist in the waters. They're a predatorial bunch, as opposed to the smarter opponents that we've had in the past. There's a lot of variations of them, but Fremine does also mention that these may be fossils of once beautiful creatures in an unknown civilization, insinuating that perhaps the Phantasm Abberants preceded humanity and is amongst the echelons of the primordial creatures of Devat. I also wonder if it's because of them that the waters of Fontaine are different, but that will be something we'll have to know in the future. When we see the trailer, we are told of something known as the xenochromatic Phantasm Abberants. What that completely entails, though, is unknown. The mystical nature of Fontaine's waters is also incorporated in how there exist floating bodies of waters. Whatever these things are, they remind me of aquariums, so I wonder if we can view the internal part of them while on the overworld, like seeing fishes and kelp while being outside, but by the way that we see them in the trailer, I think they're completely opaque until entrance. Unfortunately, I'm also interested to see what kind of ancient civilization they had cooking for this place. Some Phantasm Abberants are able to infuse their body with elemental energies, but they can also evolve based on their lifespan and the amount of energy they have consumed. The Emperor of Fire and Iron is an example of such an evolution, and it's unknown how long this thing has been in Fontainian waters. Now we end this video with a little bit of details from the trailer that we should keep in mind. This was something that I didn't see the first time, and now I'm actually going to give this a little bit more attention because Tartaglia doesn't have his vision during this scene, which could possibly be why he immediately uses his delusion instead of his water blades. Now that's a fascinating thought. What in the world happened to Tartaglia's vision? Was it confiscated? Did they not confiscate his delusion? I don't know. And if you notice, I didn't cover the characters because that's going to be in another video. A deep dive into their potential roles in the story and a brief background into their descriptions. But anyway, that's it for me today. Here's the looking out for Fontaine. And yes, I am very biased to prim and proper Victorian era steampunk. How could you tell? But anyway, I also do want to ask for help because this is one of the rare videos where I actually am not sure how to pronounce majority of the terms here. I've never had any experience with French names and or pronunciations the same way that I had for Italian, Chinese, and Japanese. And I have a list in the description of the words that I am very unfamiliar with. I guess it does look simple to say, but I'm really hoping that I'm pronouncing them right for the future videos. So anyway, my name is Aster and thank you for your help, and thank you for chilling with me. Bye-bye! The frame of their vision indicates whether they are able to control Oh no, how do you pronounce that? The frame of their vision indicates whether they are able to control Wesia or Numa. In philosophy, Wesia Vakadu. Oh my god, how do you pronounce that? We also have a bunch of Clockwork Bazaars that